Hello classmates. I am VMate, your virtual classmate. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe and smash the notification bell next to it. Don't forget to like, comment and share.
Number 1. The correct answer is letter C. Note that the commercial papers are acquired 3 months before maturity, therefore qualified as cash equivalent. If your answer is letter A, it means you have not deducted the post-dated check from the cash on hand. Since the check is dated January 10, 2021, it will not be in cash until such date. Therefore, as of December 31, 2020, the check should be reverted back to receivable account and deducted back from cash. If your answer is letter B, it means you have included the undelivered check. Remember that the undelivered check does not eliminate the obligation until the check is presented to the bank for encashment. Therefore, it should be reverted back to payable account and added back to cash. If your answer is letter D, it means you have mistakenly deducted the undelivered check instead of adding it back. Number 2. The correct answer is letter A. If your answer is letter B, it means you have deducted the compensating balance incorrectly. Note that you will only deduct the compensating balance if legally restricted. Since there was no restriction mentioned in the problem, then report as cash. If your answer is letter C, means you have mistakenly classified the preferred stocks as cash equivalent. Note, one of the criteria to be classified as cash equivalents is that there must be maturity date. Since preferred stocks are equity securities, it does not mature. But if the preferred stocks have redemption date, then it is qualified as cash equivalents, provided the acquisition date is 3 months or less before maturity. If your answer is letter D, means you have erroneously included the check with insufficient fund. This check will not be accepted by the bank. Therefore, the obligation remains to exist and the receivable is not terminated. Number 3. The correct answer is letter A. If your answer is letter B, it means you have offsetted the overdraft in Samba account to debit balance in sub account. Since these are two different banks, offsetting is not allowed. Overdraft should be reported as current liability. If your answer is letter C, means you have included the stale check. Since the check is outstanding for more than 6 months from May 5 to December 31, 2020, then it is considered stale and will not be accepted by the bank. If your answer is letter D, means you have included the sinking fund and restricted foreign account. Both accounts are set aside for long-term purpose. Therefore, they should be reported as non-current asset. Number 4. The correct answer is letter D. If your answer is letter A, means you have not included the check drawn to petty cash custodian. This check represents replenishment of fund. Therefore, it should be included in the petty cash balance. If your answer is letter B, you have mistakenly included the due from employees. This is classified as receivables from employees. If your answer is letter C, you have mistakenly included the manager's check with insufficient fund. Number 5. The correct answer is letter C. Note that we have deducted the unreplenished expenses of 2,480 from the petty cash balance. Remember, under fluctuating fund system, at the end of the reporting period, the petty cash balance should be adjusted to state the correct balance in the balance sheet. We have deducted the treasury bills from the money market securities. Note that the 3-month rule is between acquisition date and maturity date. But the problem is just trying to confuse you by mentioning 2 months remaining period from the end of the reporting period, which is not the rule to follow. In fact, the actual months from March 20 to 2020, the acquisition date, to February 20, 2021, the maturity date, is total of 11 months. Therefore, in this case, the 3-month rule is not met and the treasury bills are not qualified as cash equivalents. Also, we have excluded the cash and bank restricted. This is because it is set aside for long-term use, which is the plant expansion. As a rule, the classification of cash always follow its purpose or related liability. If the purpose or related liability is current, then report as cash. But if the purpose or related liability is non-current, then report as long-term investment. If your answer is letter A, means you have mistakenly deducted the 3,000 post-dated check. Note that the problem says that the cash on hand excludes that check. Means that the cash on hand is correctly stated. Therefore, ignore the post-dated check. If your answer is letter D, means you have mistakenly excluded the sinking fund. Although the sinking fund is restricted for long-term liability, but such liability is due in less than 12 months from the end of the year. Therefore, the liability is reclassified as current liability as of December 31, 2020. So does the sinking fund. Because again, the rule is, the classification of cash always follows the classification of related liability. Number 6. The correct answer is letter D. We have deducted from undeposited receipts the check with insufficient fund. This kind of check will not be accepted by the bank and does not eliminate the payer's obligation. Therefore, it should remain in the receivable account and excluded from cash. We also excluded the bond sinking fund because the related loan is due in January 2022, which is more than 12 months from the reporting period. Therefore, it should be reported as long-term investment. Also excluded are the vouchers paid. It represents expenses to be recorded. If your answer is letter A, means you have mistakenly added back the bank overdraft. Note that offsetting is allowed if two or more accounts are in the same bank. The problem says that the overdraft of 5,000 is in the other branch account, means that it is in the same bank of different branch. Therefore, offsetting is allowed. If your answer is letter B, it means that the projected increase in the petty cash fund to 3,000 in 2021 is mistakenly considered. That is just a mere projection. It will not be accounted until actually occurred. If your answer is letter C, means that you have erroneously included the bond sinking fund and mistakenly deducted the check with no sufficient fund. Number 7. The correct answer is letter D. Note that we have ignored the check with insufficient fund. This is because it was redeposited and cleared before the end of the reporting period. Therefore, it is correctly included in the 4 million checkbook balance. If your answer is letter A, it means that you have forgotten to include the remaining dollar bills and coins from the petty cash balance. Also, the 4 million checkbook balance does not include the petty cash fund. Since the problem is asking for cash balance, we have to include the petty cash fund. If your answer is letter B, means you forgot to adjust the undelivered check of $800,000. Although the check was mailed on December 31, but it was erroneously sent to inappropriate supplier. Therefore, it does not constitute proper payment and obligation remains to exist. If your answer is letter C, means you have mistakenly deducted the check with insufficient fund. Number 8. The correct answer is letter C. Note that we have not included the petty cash vouchers because they are reported as expenses. Also, the check with insufficient fund is not included because it is reported on the receivable account. If your answer is letter A, means you have mistakenly included the employee's contribution. This is personal money of the employees and should not be reported as part of petty cash. If your answer is letter B, means you have mistakenly included the check drawn to the petty cash custodian. Since the check is dated next year, it is included as post-dated check. If your answer is letter D, means you have mistakenly considered the full amount of petty cash fund established. Since the problem is asking for the petty cash fund amount to be reported in the statement of financial position, therefore, it should be the adjusted balance net of expenses.
If this video is helpful for you, please support my channel, share to your friends and spread the knowledge. Thank you for watching.